In 1944, over 500 Allied airmen were trapped behind enemy lines in Nazi-occupied Yugoslavia. The Germans had a standing order: 100 civilians executed for every soldier killed. Serbian villagers knew the price. They sheltered the airmen anyway. What followed was one of the most daring rescue operations of the entire war. So secret, it stayed buried for decades. And it started with a knock on a farmhouse door. A pilot's boots sink into the mud, heart pounding, lungs burning with the bite of cold mountain air. His parachute, torn by branches, dangles behind him as he scrambles from the wreckage, 4,500 feet down from the sky, now hunted on foreign ground. The forest presses close, thick with shadows. He moves on instinct, dragging an injured leg, clutching the last of his morphine syrettes and a battered field kit. In these first hours, every sound could mean discovery. He crawls beneath a tangle of pine boughs, slicing his canopy into strips for a crude shelter. Rain patters overhead. He binds a gash with a ration of bandage, then swallows a tablet of sulfa powder, the only defense against infection. Hunger gnaws, but the risk of lighting a fire is too great. Instead, he chews on dry leaves, sips from a canteen, and waits. Night falls. The pilot listens for German patrols, for the bark of a dog, for anything that signals danger or hope. In the darkness, he recalls the words he scribbled in his diary. If I am found, I am dead. If I move, I may live. By the third day, fever grips him. He finds a cache of penicillin dropped by Allied planes, hidden beneath a pile of stones. The injection stings, but salvation flickers. He wraps himself tighter, counting the hours, measuring silence. The wind shifts. Somewhere beyond the tree line, a distant knock echoes through the valley. The pilot holds his breath. Salvation or betrayal, just a farmhouse door away. Hundreds of men endure these first 72 hours, alone and unseen, before the first stranger steps from the mist. In the mountain villages of Serbia, a code of honor called gostoprimstvo carried the weight of law. For the Gvozdenovics of Jelasnica and the Jovanovics of Kraljevo, this ancient duty meant more than offering bread and shelter. It meant risking everything. German occupation authorities had posted the terms in every market square, and they were clear. For every German soldier killed, 100 civilians would die. The same rule applied to anyone caught helping Allied airmen. Yet, when a knock came at midnight or a wounded pilot staggered from the woods, doors opened. Hidden in attics and barns, airmen learned to move only at dusk, their boots muffled by rags, their voices kept to whispers. Villagers rotated safe houses, shared their winter rations, and posted lookouts on every ridge. Children carried coded messages between farms, while women smuggled bread and bandages beneath their aprons. Each day brought the risk of betrayal: a neighbor's word, a careless footprint in fresh mud, or the distant growl of a German patrol. The Gvozdenovics concealed 3 Americans in a hayloft for weeks, feeding them from a single pot. The Jovanovics built a false wall in their cellar, hiding 2 RAF crewmen as German officers dined in the room above. These acts were not isolated. Across the valleys, dozens of families repeated the same rituals, knowing that discovery would mean execution, not just for themselves, but for their entire community. Yet the duty of gostoprimstvo endured. In silence and shadow, ordinary villagers became guardians of lives not their own, holding out against fear as the world outside closed in. George Vujonovic sat behind a battered desk in Bari, Italy, tracing flight paths across a map of Yugoslavia. His own family roots ran back to Belgrade, but now he was the OSS's Balkan desk chief, the man asked to turn rumors and coded pleas into a plan that could save hundreds of stranded airmen. Each message that reached him, smuggled through mountain couriers and tapped out on a clandestine radio, added urgency. The numbers were growing. Something bigger than a few scattered rescues was needed. Bujnovic worked alongside linguists, engineers, and local contacts, fusing aerial reconnaissance from the U.S. 12th Air Force with hand-drawn village maps. He pored over reports from Chetnik outposts and weighed the risk of every move. The first breakthrough came in the form of a coded cable. It authorized humanitarian flights signed by General William Donovan himself. The OSS now had permission to use C-47 transport planes for a mission deep inside enemy territory, bypassing the usual chains of command. Securing the green light was only the beginning. The operation would need fuel, nearly 750 kilograms of aviation gasoline hidden in barrels at the Borisavljevic depot and relayed by night along back roads to the planned extraction site. Bujnovic arranged for a portable radio beacon, the ANART-3, to be smuggled in pieces and reassembled at the edge of a meadow. Local ground crews received hurried lessons in aircraft signaling and refueling, their instructions delivered in whispered Serbian and halting English. Every step, every supply, was shadowed by the threat of German patrols. A final encrypted cable flashed across the OSS network. The mission was a go. The airmen would be gathered at a single point. The villagers and resistance fighters were sworn to secrecy. The airstrip would be built in silence and darkness. With authorization secured and logistics set in motion, the paper plans began to take shape on the ground. One careful decision at a time, under the weight of lives depending on the outcome. At Pranjani, the rescue moved from rumor to reality with the sound of axes and shovels before dawn. Local laborers, farmers, stonemasons, even children cleared a meadow by hand, leveling earth and laying timber beams in silence. The finished runway stretched 1,200 meters, a narrow ribbon of compacted soil and wood, hidden in a fold of valley and ringed by dense pine. Nikola Radosavljevic, the village foreman, walked the length of the field each day, inspecting for stray footprints or loose branches that might betray its purpose to a German spotter overhead. Saplings were replanted along the margins, and lengths of canvas netting painted with crude silhouettes draped overhead. By day, the field looked like any other patch of wild grass. By night, it became a lifeline. The first C-47 Skytrain arrived under a moonless sky, guided by a single lantern shielded behind a stone wall. The pilot, Captain Robert Miller, circled twice before trusting the faint radio pulse from the ANART-3 beacon, a signal built and tuned by hands who had never seen an airplane up close. The landing was rough but true. In the darkness, villagers and Chetnik fighters hustled airmen aboard, moving quickly as the engines idled. 30 men climbed in, some still in blood-stained uniforms, others wearing borrowed boots and homespun coats. Each sortie lasted minutes. 35 flights in all, each one a gamble against time and silence. On the 14th night, a German patrol approached the airstrip just as a landing was underway. Chetnik sentries fired warning shots. A flare arced up, casting the field in sudden daylight. The ground crew froze, then scrambled to douse lanterns and drag camouflage nets across the runway. The C-47 lifted off as gunfire echoed in the hills, its cargo safe for another night. No one could promise the next flight would succeed. Still, the work continued, lanterns shielded, radios checked, sentries posted. For every airman who vanished into the belly of a transport, 100 villagers held their breath, trusting that the secret would hold until the last engine faded into the sky. After the last transport lifted from Pranjani, the story of Operation Halyard vanished into locked cabinets and diplomatic caution. In 1946, a State Department memo warned that public credit for the Chetnik-led rescue could strain fragile relations with Yugoslavia's new government. OSS files, stamped with special operations codes, were sealed away, classified under Balkan affairs. For decades, these records remained untouched, their contents hidden even from military historians. The official seal was not lifted until 1972, but by then, the world had moved on. Names, dates, and testimonies, evidence of a rescue that saved over 500 airmen, were buried by design, silenced by politics, and the uneasy aftermath of war. After the war, the Yugoslav communist regime issued a directive. All school textbooks and public records would erase any mention of the rescue, removing Operation Halyard from official history. Stories faded from classrooms and newspapers, and survivors learned to keep silent. Decades passed. In the 1990s, as archives opened and censorship eased, historians began to piece together the truth. The first scholarly monograph appeared in 1995, drawing on newly declassified Office of Strategic Services files. What had been hidden in locked cabinets and family memories finally entered the public record, restoring a chapter of courage nearly lost to time. In a world quick to forget, this daring wartime rescue still stands as proof that courage and cooperation can defy impossible odds. Hundreds survived because ordinary people risked everything, and their story remains a reminder, even in darkness, quiet heroism shapes history. Share your thoughts below.